The question I love to ask is, who are you when it matters most? I'll give you a situation that happened to me recently. So we're looking to buy a car, and I have noticed that in a lot of these private sale ads, there's this weird hostility, this sort of passive aggression in the sales notes around don't be this and you got to be like that and don't waste my time, don't ask for a discount and that sort of stuff. It's very hostile. And considering this is a marketplace, effectively these are people trying to sell their things. And so if you're in a buyer's market, it obviously may suck to be a seller. And if you're in a seller's market, it may suck to be a buyer. So we're in one of those flow cycles right now where it's a buyer's market. And a lot of these ads, as a result, you've got people who may significantly overvalue what it is they're trying to sell, and they're going to lose some money. One of these ads reached out to the guy. He's got an interesting car I like the look of, and it's priced reasonably. We had a good chat about it. I made a couple of comments just regarding some of the things that may need tending to. I said, look, let's chat in the morning. So then anyway, later that night, I get this very hostile message from him. Initially, I got triggered by it. I was just like, oh my God, what's this guy's problem? Then as I calmed down, I slowed down, I go, okay, this guy seems quite scared, upset. Maybe he's had negative experiences in the past of scammers and dealers and buyers who dropped out. Because of the kind of work we do, it made me really think about who's he being when he's selling and who am I being when I'm buying. Even as a subtle question like that, it really helped me start to observe, okay, if you're trying to sell something and you're immediately suspicious and guarded and hostile and passive aggressive, how might that show up for the buyer? If I'm a buyer who is vague or demanding or rude, how might that show up for the seller? So to give that context around the being a buyer's market means that there are a lot of buyers in the market right now who may be very arrogant. Just like in a seller's market, when property or cars are doing well, sellers can be very indifferent and take it or leave it. And if you don't like it, not my problem. Having worked in a sales environment before, when things get tough, that's when you actually have to learn to sell. This is now just about order taking. You actually have to learn to sell. And I don't think it's a surprise that a lot of people who get into real estate, who get into cars, who get into some sort of sales environment, tend to leave the industry when the market gets tough. They'll blame that they're not making any money. That's just the way it is, and not actually fully appreciate that they were riding a wave of good times where people were basically falling over themselves. They were basically glorified order takers. But it's now in these more difficult environments, you actually need to learn how to sell. Likewise, when you're in a buying market, it's very easy just to sort of be arrogant. You could use this as a correlation to the employment market, for instance, when there is an over or under supply of employees or job opportunities. And so it's this interesting behavior that humans have that when, depending on which side of the fence they're sitting on, ultimately changes the context from which they operate. Side random thought, I often think about when you're in a car and you're sitting there at the crossing, you've got pedestrians going over the crossing, you're getting frustrated because you're like, can't you see I'm trying to get somewhere and you damn pedestrians? But then when you're a pedestrian, how dare this driver, can't you see I'm walking over here? It's a good reminder that as human beings, we can sometimes get very lost in our own context and fail to appreciate the context of another person. It was powerful for me because it was like, okay, he seems scared. Now I can react to that. I could be triggered by that and go, what? So you're calling me a scammer and you're calling me this and how dare you? And I could react. And that would probably go exactly the way we can imagine it would. But if you think about saying, okay, what is the common goal here? He has a car to sell. I want to buy a car. So there is a shared mutual interest in this thing. And really this is about how do we find terms that occur as a win-win? Because if there's a win-lose outcome for this, like one of us is going to be upset or the deal won't happen, or if anything, it reinforces a particular view. So the ultimate goal here would be a win-win situation where we're both actually happy, not only with the outcome, but the experience while producing the outcome. So I messaged him back and said, look, I understand that you may have had some negative experiences in the past. I hope you appreciate that we're both not looking to waste time and energy unnecessarily. I'm not exactly sure what's happened for you since we spoke, where your tone has changed. Please understand that I'm fully aware that he's trying to get as much money as he can. And I'm sure you can fully appreciate that me as a buyer is also buyer beware, as I'm assuming risk. So I woke up this morning and I got a message back from him apologizing, basically saying, oh, look, I'm sorry. And he started to share a lot more information, not only about the deal, but about his own situation. So in that moment, being able to interrupt myself was able to interrupt him. And being able to interrupt him then meant where not only did he divulge more information, which was useful for us making a deal, but it actually developed a deeper sense of trust. As he's negotiating with other parties, and he's no doubt been this way with them as well, they've had a different reaction to him. So in a strange way, it's a bit of a boon to me because yes, he's had other interested parties, but he set them on fire because of his way of being and because of those people don't have their own practice of choosing who they're being. They just reacted to him. It's a very useful skill to be able to interrupt yourself in this particular moment, to be able to go, okay, don't take it personally. He's obviously scared. This is what he's doing for whatever reason. And I can choose to now react to that. Or I can be cold, or I could be mean, or I could be antagonistic, or I can just try and call it for what it is and be a little vulnerable myself, bring out his vulnerability, and here we are. It made me think, though, in this work, I'm in the business of interrupting self-deception for the purpose of mastering self-honesty. I've feared lying. I've been a liar myself. I've lied about things. I've been lied to. I think it's a very human thing. Big lies, little lies, lies that have got me in trouble, lies I've gotten away with. And at some particular point through different experiences in my life, that lying stopped working. As I did a lot more of this self-work, I started to realize how afraid I was of lying and why I lied and why other people lied. And while I could develop an intellectual appreciation for it, it didn't change the fact that when I was being lied to, when I was lying, I had my own physiological response to the moment. So a boundary I created was I won't put up with liars, but then all that did was make my world very small. And it made it very difficult because what was I to do when I started lying to me? And I was one of the people that I was trying to distance myself from. So that's one of the inherent challenges with creating a boundary is sometimes you can be the person who's encroaching on your own boundary and you can't get away from yourself. As I look at that boundary for myself, it's saying, what does this boundary exist for? And really it's to protect me from me. It's to protect me from the version of me that can't survive being lied to because my world will fall apart and my whole identity will fall apart and I won't be okay. Doing the work on that part of my life means that I don't eventually need the boundary, in the sense that I can still have the principle of radical self-honesty, but I'm not afraid of people who lie. I can appreciate why they lie because I can appreciate why I lie. So to get to that place, though, that's why the self-work matters so much, because trying to be accepting and loving of other people who lie while still having shame and guilt and punishment for ourselves, it's not sustainable. We're trying to discipline and force our way through this situation, and it's just not sustainable. Just like you can't discipline your way through the gym and keep it up and keep enjoying it, at some point you have to develop a loving relationship to it, a playful relationship, so you want to be there, you want to do it, and so therefore it becomes sustainable. So the thing that I noticed was, as I went through life not wanting liars, and yet all I saw was liars. Why? Because I'm looking for them to cut them out, to avoid them, to punish them, to judge them, to reject them. I think about this particularly with things like people who may be very conservative in certain areas of their life, perhaps around sexuality. The running thought that I've often had is that these people are far more sex obsessed than maybe some people who are sex obsessed, because they think about sex just as much, if not more, because of what they're trying to avoid with it. When you think about this guy, he's so afraid of scammers, he's so afraid of his time wasted, that he may in fact actually be attracting them. And attracting them because he needs to attract them in order to protect himself from them. And yet not realize that as he puts it out into the world and has this very strong position about these particular people, doesn't realize that he's actually manifesting more of it into his world. I could tell in this moment, as he was even sharing information about things, that he wasn't really being forthright. He was operating from fear. It was a great reminder for me that in the moment in the past, I would have wanted nothing more than to call him out as a liar, to prove it, to be right about him. Finally caught you, see, and this is why your life sucks and why you get what you get. And yet that would compete now with not only the outcome that I want for myself, but also the outcome I think is possible for him and the outcome we could create together. And so a huge amount of this work has been, it wasn't until I started to let go of that boundary, develop the freedom to be around people who were more self-deceiving. Maybe think how that translates into who am I when I'm negotiating? Who am I when I'm buying? Who am I when I'm selling? Who am I when I'm leading? Even as something as seemingly everyday and pedestrian as buying a car or going through your day, doing your thing, we could sit there and think, what's that got to do with this work? And it has everything to do with this work. When these little situations show up, it's a beautiful reminder and a beautiful opportunity of not only our own sense of self, we can fully see this other person and why they're doing what they're doing, and maybe even the fears that they've got going on. And we can address it and navigate it with love and kindness and grace in a way that we can steer the ship back to this sort of mutual outcome rather than just throw grenades in each other's faces and have this mutually assured destruction. I haven't bought the car yet, but what we're ultimately trying to do is we're trying to connect, and we're trying to use this connection of these two seemingly disparate things, bring them together and create a magical outcome, like cooking maybe, or music. And in our impatience and in our fear, we can be a little heavy-handed. And I think about all these angry ads, all these people who want to sell their cars, but they're immediately putting everyone on the back foot, including themselves, are already expecting everybody to come tire kick and waste their time and rip them off and all sorts of things. So much so that they wouldn't actually recognize a good buyer if one came along, because they're not looking for that. They're looking for the people that are going to fuck them over. In this situation, I noticed that it wasn't about me saying to him, I'm not here to screw you over. I'm not here to do whatever. It was actually addressing the fact that, yeah, I am looking for a good deal. And I also know that you're trying to get one too. And I think this is a very important piece that's missing in modern negotiations, in modern sales, in modern relationships. This constant obsession with what I need out of this situation and everybody else needs to give me what I need or I'm not going to do it, means we miss each other. Part of the self-work is allowing us to make peace with ourselves and to be able to represent ourselves calmly, peacefully, fairly in these situations, that we don't have to people please our way in or out of a deal. And at the same time, it's not necessarily designed to be that we become so neurotic and self-obsessed with ourselves that we fail to recognize another person, particularly the other party in any negotiation. Being able to enter his world and fully appreciate what he's going through as well, and to recognize what his goals are, to recognize that I'm looking for win-win, and that I recognize and respect that he has his own experiences and his own challenges, and I have mine. I'm forthright with mine. I can see his. I'm not bothered. I'm not ashamed. I'm not trying to manipulate that. And the question now is, as a collaboration, how do we create this? How do we make this deal happen? As opposed to, you're this, I'm that, you need to do this, I need to do that. And it's this very corrosive, divisive approach to things. In any of these situations, whether it's in your workplace, in your partnership, in your family, at your club, this is going to happen because this is humans coming together. This is ingredients mixing. And yet it's going to be the person who can interrupt that. It's the person who's able to interrupt that with a sense of calm that is going to be the one who's in the most control. And the other person is going to be the one who's going to need to be talked off the ledge. So I don't know what's going to happen with this car. Maybe I'll buy it, maybe I won't. But it was just a really beautiful reminder, daily lesson of what this practice represents, that even sometimes in the simplest of things in our lives, when we're able to interrupt ourselves in the particular moment, we can completely change the future. We do not have to be passengers on the bus and a victim of all our biggest fears and all our projections and catastrophes that we've created in our mind. We can come along and we can interrupt ourselves. And by doing so, then we can interrupt somebody else and we can create stuff that we both love. If you enjoy these conversations and you enjoy what I'm about, I'd love to meet you. What I'm looking for in the world are people who are brave and courageous enough to be able to look in the mirror, to interrupt their own self-deception, to be interrupted so that they can help interrupt other people effectively as well. A huge part of this is having a natural curiosity and a desire to want to explore and play through life. If that sounds like someone like you, I'd love to get to know you. Whether it's to join us in our community, whether it's to work together, whether that's just to come to one of our events or hang out and ask each other really, really chewy questions that force us to look in the mirror. If that sounds like something up your alley, why don't you reach out? I'd love to hear from you.